We'll let Mike get into the details here in a moment, but first, I'm John Wilson, the Director of Content Marketing at AHP. I wanted to on behalf of AHP, thank everybody on the webinar today for your interest in our benchmarking program. So Mike will go through the reports in detail, but I wanted to just start off by providing a short overview of the different levels of AHP's benchmarking system. So first of all, just for submitting your data to the report on giving, you and your organization receive access to a performance scorecard that shows how you compare to other survey respondents in some key metrics. Then, of course, we'll have our PDF report on giving, the static report for both the US and Canada. That comes out in early October. And again, if your organization submitted data, you'll receive a free copy of that report. So that's the first level. We also have a basic benchmarking subscription is the second level. And that's at a $695 rate for an AHP member's subscription. It's a little bit extra for non-member organizations. And at that level, you get some 5-year trend reports that compare your organization to a comparison group that you can select. So you could select all US hospitals, all community hospitals. If you're a small community hospital, you could pick all US community hospitals under 300 beds. So you have a lot of flexibility in selecting cohorts to compare yourself to, and you can create as many of those comparison groups as you like. So those trend reports give you comparisons at some high-level board monitors. So net fundraising revenue, total expenses, ROI, both in cash and in production. And also at that basic level, you get a report of the survey summary data, including averages, minimums, maximums, medians, for most of the program areas on the survey. And then the third and highest level is our advanced benchmarking subscription. That's $12.95 for AHP members, and again, a little more expensive for non-members. And that level gives you access to some detailed comparison reports by program area. So annual, major, planned giving, corporate and foundation, government, special events. These reports are for both revenue and expenses. And again, you can choose specific comparison groups for any of these reports. The advanced level also gives you access to additional expense data from the survey, so giving you comparisons by constituency, how organizations used the dollars they raised, and a lot more beyond that, which Mike will go into in more detail. And if your organization didn't participate in this year's survey submitting FY17 data, we encourage you to participate next year to get the free PDF report on giving and to get your free performance scorecard. But even if you didn't participate in the process this year, you can still subscribe to either the basic or the advanced benchmarking. Obviously, your organization's data wouldn't be in the system, but you could still run the reports to get the benchmark numbers and see how you compare to your peers. So with that short overview of the 3 levels, I'll turn it back over to Mike to walk through the reports in more detail and show you how you can access them.
Great. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar. As I mentioned before we started, the webinars up until this point have been focusing mainly on how to complete the survey. But since the database is closed now, clearly at this point, we're just focusing on what you can get out of it as far as the report itself. What I've done, what you see on the screen here is a landing page. So again, whether you've participated or not, if you did pay for either the basic or advanced subscription, AHP would give you access to a page that looks basically like this. Now I'm set up as a test person, so and a demo hospital. So there'll be some information that appears here that is obviously not from a specific organization, but it's just intended to sort of give you an idea of what you would see if your organization did participate. And the other thing that I'll mention at the outset is that what I've set myself up here as is a person that has the privileges to see basically everything as an advanced subscriber. So I'll go through that about how different the screen will look as opposed to if you just participated in the survey and didn't pay for access or at the basic level. Let's just go ahead and click on what we're looking at here. What we're going to be focusing on is benchmarking, and the two areas that we're going to be looking at are comparison groups and predefined reports. So let me go into predefined reports. There's a couple of things I just want to point out to everyone up front. Again, this is the area that I was talking about. If you participated in the survey and did not pay for either basic or advanced access, when you click on this screen, what's going to come up is the scorecard that John had alluded to. And this is, again, the report that AHP offers for free. The other thing that and I just want to point this out right up front, from a comparison group standpoint, there's a couple of things here. Number one, public groups, you're going to see that we've checked off the 2016 data here. The 2017 data is still being worked on. There's a good chance that at some point in the next week or so, but it may be a little bit longer than that, that it would be available for view and for access. It's going to coincide with the rollout of AHP's subscription service for this year. And what happens with the subscription service, just so you know the dates involved, it would be somewhere, say before the end of August probably, and it's going to run until the end of March for next year. So it's not actually a calendar year, and that's simply because when the database is opened next year to collect the 2018 fiscal data, then those privileges would end because we're at a point where the database is open. But again, up until that point, whether you pay for access or not, if you participated in the program, you could go into the scorecard, you could go in as a basic subscriber or an advanced subscriber, and comparison groups that you want, or obviously use the existing ones that you have and go through that. So let me go ahead and jump back then to predefined reports. And what I'll do is just sort of go in the order of what's available for free, what's available for basic, and then for the advanced. So the scorecard, again, if you just participated, no matter what level, if you participated in the mini survey or the full survey, you're going to have access to this. You can see here where it says comparison group. There's a number of different comparison groups here. The public ones that I showed you are the ones that are listed here, the ones that were checked. There's a number of these. You can see combined group. They're sort of areas that we were focusing on specific comparisons. These are the actual, for the demo hospital organization, these are our private groups. So these are not groups that everyone else would see. But again, this would be an idea of what you would see if you created your own comparison groups. You're going to have the public ones that you checked off that you wanted to show up, and then also the ones that you've created. So let's go ahead and just click on, this is going to be the most robust group. So you have basically report on giving participants from fiscal year 2016. And then you can come up and look at the slideshow. This gives you an introduction to how it works. As John mentioned, it looks at some top-level ratios and metrics for return on investment, cost to raise $1, etc. If you wanted to interpret what an efficient ROI or cost to raise $1 would be, you can get a little information here, but the next slide is where you're going to see the comparison. You know what? Let me go back. I think I neglected to put for the scorecard. I neglected to put. Oh no, I did include focus. Okay. Well, for our focus organization, apparently we don't have any information for that. So I apologize for that. Let me go back and choose the same one we were going with. Report on giving participants. And again, you can go and hit the next button here, or you can just choose what you want from here. So I'll go back to that scorecard table. The group that we've set up, if it doesn't have any information, which the demo hospital looks like it does not, then it's not going to show across here. But basically, there would be a yellow line across here, and it would show all of the information from your organization, along with the mean, the median, and different percentiles for the organizations. You can look at the total number of organizations in the comparison group at the bottom, and then to put it into context, it would be good to look at the number of organizations reporting valid data, because obviously not everybody reports for every area. So you can see when you're looking at direct staff, you have the same number. When you get down to total endowment, obviously the number is much lower. So depending on the number reporting valid, that would be your key as to how much emphasis you would put on those numbers, because they're not as robust as the others. And at the bottom, you can see this can be exported as a CSV file. So all you would do is just click on this. It's going to bring you, it'll bring an Excel file basically would open up, and then you can save that. And that's any area within this report. So we'll go to the next slide here. So this is already graphed out for the people in the survey. Where it says summary here, that would be your organization. So you would see a dot somewhere in here, hopefully in a reasonable range that you compare to with the other groups. And again, you can download that as well. So each section of this scorecard gives you, these subsequent ones rather, give you a graphical representation of the data that you saw in the first slide. And let me go back to predefined reports. So if you've participated in the report, you get the report on giving, the PDF, and then you also, which obviously is static, but you also have access to the database. And that would be something that you could create as many groups as you wanted. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch back and show you how to create comparison groups, but just so that everyone is focused on what's available, I'm going to go ahead and jump to the reports for the basic subscribers. As John mentioned, the one big difference if you're jumping into the basic level as opposed to the scorecard is the ability to see 5-year trends. The scorecard, if you recall, was basically just looking at 1 year, which is great, but if you were interested in a trending standpoint, and certainly if your organization participates on a regular basis, probably the basic subscription would at least give you more information. So let me go ahead and just look at the same report here. So 204 participants. we just had a question about the basic and advanced subscription. That's basically for the basic subscription for AHP members is $695, and that would run from, say, this week until probably just about the end of March. And for non-members, it's $995. So the advanced subscription is $1,295, same time frame that it's open, and the non-members would be $1,595. So let me just go back. We're choosing the fiscal year of 2016 here. And then this is going to bring the report. Okay, so what you're going to see here is sort of your standard Excel file with a number of tabs at the bottom that are already pre-labeled. It starts with Endowment, which, if you remember from the scorecard, is going to be a tab that's not going to be as robust as some of these others, simply because not everybody has Endowment. But what you can see is what this does is, and again, the focus organization is not there, but it would be if there was information in it. What this does from a trending standpoint is it looks at the report on giving participants in 2016, and then it looks at the same participants for 2016 and for the prior 4 years. So the information that's in here is based on the same participants, or however many are the same over that period of time. So you have the numbers, and then you have a chart, and it would be the same with cash. You can see it graphed out, and then you can see it in a table below that. And then this is the production return on investment. And then we'll look at the cost to raise $1. Looks like we're not doing too well at Demo Hospital, where we're probably going to be closing down soon, as it's over $2.50. And the same with our production. But obviously, when you get into this chart, if you had an organization that had reasonable numbers here, you're going to see this stratified in a way that you can see more detail, and that you would be able to see down in this chart here, where over that period of time, you can see that the median fluctuates slightly, the high of 25 cents for 2012, and then going down to 20 cents actually in 2013, or and also in 2015. This would just give you an idea for either cash or production of your efficiency within your group compared to everyone else. Okay, let me get back into the reports. The other thing that this will give you is you still have the performance scorecard. So when you're a basic subscriber, you're going to see the scorecard. You're going to see everything down to here. We'll just go in and look at another report here. I'm going to go ahead and choose the same group. And this gives you the monitors for cash. This is looking at annual gifts. So you have the number of gifts, the total value of those gifts, the ROI, and the cost to raise $1 in that area. And again, what this will do is look at each program area that's, if you're familiar with the report I'm giving, there are a number of different program areas, from major gifts to endowments to corporate giving, annual giving. It'll break down each of the program areas, and if you did not participate, then clearly your organization's data is not going to be there. But if you did, then you have something that's easily to manipulate for each area of the report that you did participate in. And every one of these, again, you can export as CSV so that you can manipulate the data that's in here or put it into a database that you and that would be the same. That's for cash, and then there's another set of reports that mirrors this one that looks at production. And then the last area here is the survey summary. So we'll just go ahead and use the same group just so that we're looking at the same data. Okay, now you have the demo hospital looks like, I don't know, it looks like they're still not in there. But anyway, this goes down into a number of different areas. And, okay, no, they are. Here's focus organization. Okay, so this would be your organization, cash production. You're going to see how that compares to the median, the maximum, and then the average. And then it gets into areas where we haven't really looked at yet, where you're dealing with staff, the cash monitors. This will look at the same program areas that I was referring to previously. So you have annual gifts, major gifts, public support, special events, other. The production tab here will mirror the same breakouts. And then you can look into the employees, fundraising staff. Now, there's a component, especially if you haven't participated in the report. I just want to mention that if you did participate, there's, from the expense standpoint, you can choose to report detailed or summary expenses. So clearly, if you report summary expenses, there's only going to be a total for direct, a total for indirect, and then a number for overhead to come up with your total expenses. But there are a number of organizations that actually report the fundraising in detail. And in order to do that, they take each position in the direct area, say for instance, and then going across the program areas that we had mentioned previously, they percentage out how much of that particular employee's time is spent in whatever program area that they are assigned to or that they spend time with. So the theory behind it obviously would be that you're not only getting a total compensation, but you're getting that compensation spread out over the areas where they actually spend the time to give a truer picture of the expenses for whatever individual area that you're trying to look at. So that's a kind of a quick overview. Let me jump into the predefined reports for advanced. So again, if you paid for the advanced level, this is exactly what your screen is going to look like. The difference between this is you're working your way up. This is a 1-year snapshot But again, you can revisit it, you can create comparison groups, so it's not static at all. This gives you the ability to look at information over a 5-year period, and also includes the ability to look at summary data by program area. And now you basically see in the advanced area, you have the program areas here, and then you also have each section of the report. What these are is, if you are familiar with the report on giving, each section here mirrors the platform for what everyone would be able to participate in if they chose to participate at the full survey level. Not everybody has the ability to provide all of this information, which is why when, as I was pointing out earlier, when you get down to something like endowments, it's not surprising that you would have a subset that's much smaller than the total number of participants. But again, these are areas that would be very important to most groups to be able to look at the rest of the picture. Constituency giving, use of funds. If you do have the ability to see what was raised, and then also to show where that actually went to, which not everyone has, but let's assume that you did have that ability. You can see what comes up here is the same breakouts. You can see the number of organizations in the comparison group, and then the number that actually reported valid data. So a little less than half of the total in our comparison group. But again, that's fairly significant. It's certainly not a small number, but you can look across here at each area and see where that money went. So you're looking at patient care support. For looking at the mean, you can just go across the top here and see what the funds distributed would be for the total, the average for the total, and then each of the areas within that. Let me jump down to show you one of the program areas. We'll just choose major gifts. I'll choose the same group. And there you're looking at, within major gifts, the total's a little bit higher in some of these areas where you're looking at the number of gifts received and the value, and then it moves down if you're looking at some of the information about multi-year pledges. But again, it gives you a very good overview. Your data would be right across the top here, and then you're going to see everybody in the comparison group below that. Okay, well, I just wanted to give everybody an overview of that. So let me jump over to the comparison groups, because this is probably, that shows you what you would get out of it, but I've been showing you with sort of a generic view of things, just looking at comparison groups, looking at the largest number. Let's go ahead and look at this. This showed up earlier, if you remember, when I brought up comparison groups for the scorecard. We had these 5 areas that we'd already checked off, and then we also had these other personal groups here. So if you wanted to create your own comparison group, the easiest thing would be to go to this, it's called the New Group Wizard. And then based on that, you can choose different groups. These groups are actually going to be, some of them are not actually set up yet, I don't believe. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose all groups because, again, we're still finalizing things in the survey. We'll choose US, all groups. And we'll choose the Report on Giving survey. Again, you can see that you could also check a number of other years here if you wanted to. Survey variables. It's going to give you a drop-down menu. Let's just choose net patient service revenue. And what you need to do here is come up with a range. Let's say we'll just look at between, let's see, 100 million and 200 million. And we won't specify an affiliation. Let's see what that comes up with here. Okay, so based on that pretty wide range, that's a fairly significant number, 100 million difference, but obviously patient revenue, it could be very specific. You're going to come up with a list of organizations. Again, this is based on 2016 data. That shows, let's see, we're going to say, and I'm just going to go ahead and save this comparison group. Okay, now then when we come back, you're going to see from the personal groups here that we have this group now added to our list. So we have the public groups, which everybody can see, your personal groups, which only you can see, and then you see this area here that says shared groups. So let's say, for instance, that the group that you just created, you wanted to share with some specific people within your organization that have access to this. What you can do is look at this legend here, and it gives you a pretty easy idea. It's very simple with this down arrow here. If I click on this, so this is the group that I just created, and if I click on this, it will go back, and we look at the shared groups. When we open that up, you're going to see the same one that we just created is now down here as well. If you wanted to move it back so that, you know, if you did it in error or something like that, you can see the up arrows here. So we'll just go ahead and move it back. We didn't mean to do that. And then it's out of this area now. So it's flexible. You can create as many different groups as you want within that time period, whether you have the subscription or you don't. I just want to refer you to this area here, which is pretty specific. There's one thing that it doesn't mention, and that's what I wanted to point out. When you're creating comparison groups, I mean, clearly, you know, you're trying that, you know that there's a finite number of companies, organizations rather, that participate. You want to be able to create something that's comparable to what your organization is like, but you have that trade-off between getting it too narrow based on the number of organizations participating, and then obviously something that may be too wide, where I'm starting out at the beginning and I'm showing you the 204 groups or 204 organizations. So the thing that's not mentioned here is that you have to have a minimum of 6 organizations in your comparison group. Okay, once you created that comparison group, then this is where the limitation comes in, that any other group that you create must differ from it by at least 3 organizations. So, and this just protects everyone with the data, because clearly you're looking at data, you're comparing to groups, and you're seeing things based on, you're seeing organizations' names based on whatever the comparison parameters are that you set up. So even if you delete that group, I mean, obviously you've already seen that. So it's just something to keep in mind. And you, again, have to keep in mind that there's a very similar number of organizations, I can tell you, for 2017 that you're looking at for 2016. It's in probably a couple more, maybe a few more organizations reported this year, but you're in for your overall, you're into an area where you're just over a couple of hundred, and then when you start going down into specific areas, if you chose, say, community hospitals, I mean, you can see down here from the public group that, not surprisingly, that's pretty robust. I mean, it's a little over 50% of the total participants. And again, with Canada, if you are interested in that, in Canada, obviously it's a smaller number, but not insignificant at all, and certainly large enough to allow you to create comparison groups. But that's just the one thing that I wanted everybody to keep in mind, because otherwise it may get frustrating. Let me look at one other area here. You can see at the top it says combine groups. Let's say, for instance, that for some reason you have your new group that we just created here, and you wanted to combine that with fundraising expenses from $500,000 to $2 million. So what you would do is click on that and then go through. Let's see, we were looking at these two. So we're going to, that one and this one, we'll call it, we'll just call it combined group 2. And then you create that group. Okay, let me go back to comparison groups. Okay, you can see now, clearly you would give this a more specific description than what I did. But the point is, whatever group that you have, you can combine groups, and it will automatically put in everything that from those groups that will come into one group then. And again, if you wanted to share this, you would just click on that. It's going to go down into your shared groups. And now everybody can see the group that you just created. But since you created it, again, you have the ability to take that back out. So I think that gives you a pretty good overview of everything. Let me just open this up here. So did anybody have any questions? I know that's a lot of information that I went over there. And again, the ability to participate in this report, I know that there may be some people on the call that didn't participate in the survey. Clearly, as John pointed out, we would encourage you to participate next year. But the level of data that you need to participate is at the mini survey level is not very difficult to. It's information that most organizations would have at their ready. You have a few background questions, the type of organization that you are, expenses, and a combined area, where you would just give us, total direct, total indirect, and then total expenses. And then for the revenue, you would just give us total cash and total production. Again, a couple of other total donors, maybe it's like 3 or 4 other areas, but that very, very minimum number, all areas that would be I think, easily completed. And at that level, you would have the ability to go ahead and access everything based on the scorecard. And all of this, everything I'm showing you with the comparison groups here is available to you whether you subscribe or not. The obvious difference is that if I went through here and I created this group, if I was not a subscriber, the only way that I'm going to be able to look at that group is on the scorecard with a 1-year look, as opposed to trending, and certainly as opposed to the sections that we show below. So, okay, well, that's about all I had. I don't see any questions. Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry. I did miss one question here. Sorry. We had a question about the benchmarking reports ready, or do we have to wait until October? Yeah, I did mention that AHP is very, very close to making those available. I am speculating that it's going to be at the earliest sometime next week, but I would estimate that it's going to be probably before September at the latest. So it's definitely not something that you would have to wait until October. What they would, as soon as that's available, that's when they'll roll out. They'll make the benchmarking page available for everyone, and then they'll send out an email letting everyone know that if you did participate, you can log in and start trying to create your comparison groups for the scorecard. And then they'll also provide you the information with the differences as far as the basic and the advanced subscribers to the database. So I hope that answers your question. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, again, I wanted to thank everybody for attending. I hope that I've been able to show you enough information that certainly if you didn't participate, that it might encourage you to participate or to try to gain access as a subscriber to the database. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. We're recording this webinar, so I'm going to record it, save it, and send it to AHP after our call today. And then when they send the link back to me, I'll send that out to everyone, and you'll have my contact information. I'd be happy to, you'll have obviously a link to the webinar, but then you'll also have my contact information. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So again, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.